On today's episode, the president of Tough Mudder, Kyle McLaughlin.
This is the world's toughest podcast. Welcome to the world's toughest podcast, where we talk about any obstacle course race you'd like, as long as that's world's toughest mudder. Each week we talk to members of the WTM community and share stories of success and failure in the single greatest event in OCR. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the world's toughest podcast.
Welcome back to World's Toughest Podcast. Thank you for listening. You are great. My name is Will Hicks. You can email me at willhicks@gmail.com. You can follow the show on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook by searching for World's Toughest Podcast. And you can also follow us on the OCR Report Instagram. Search for the OCR Report. We would love to have you there for live race coverage. That is where you want to be. Instagram, the OCR Report. And as long as you're on your phone, why don't you download the latest episode of Obstacle Running Adventures or OCR Talk or the OCR Report, where we talk about obstacle course racing and not just Tough Mudder. Welcome back. I am very excited about 2020. If you've been following the news or listening to the OCR Report podcast, you already heard that Spartan has purchased Tough Mudder. And it's been a long road, right? Do you remember you and I talked? I just talked about this on our other podcast on the OCR Report. We were worried. Oh my gosh, Spartan's going to buy Tough Mudder. What does that mean? And then it went from that to Spartan, please buy Tough Mudder because we don't know what's going on and we don't want them to go away. And now they have. And it's great news. It is great news. The same team of people is running Tough Mudder as was running it before. They've been hired by Spartan. We will talk with Kyle in a minute. And Kyle talks about that. Spartan has gone out of their way. They are taking care of the Team HQ employees and putting money behind the product, the Tough Mudder product, and very excited about 2020, very excited about World's Toughest Mudder and everything going on. So we're going to talk with Kyle McLaughlin, the president of Tough Mudder, here in a minute. But before we do, let's read some iTunes reviews. Let's read some iTunes reviews.
5 stars.
5 stars. 5 stars. 5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars. 5 stars.
5 stars. First review comes from Juddy Buddy Balls. Juddy writes, 5 stars. This podcast is a great companion to keep you informed and pumped for WTM and toughest events. Thank you, Juddy Buddy. We're going to call you. I appreciate that. You know, one of the reasons I've talked about this, one of the reasons we started the podcast was I needed to keep myself pumped up for World's Toughest Mudder all year long because it happened to me more than once. I'd start the year off, January. All right, training for World's Toughest. And in February, I'd be like, it's so long. Oh, it's so far away. And March, I'm like, it's my birthday. And then April, May, June, I get to October and I'm like, oh shoot, World's Toughest Mudder is in 3 weeks. I better start training. And by the time you get to October, you're either ready or you're not. So I said, you know what? I want to hear about World's Toughest Mudder all year long. And no one else was talking about it except for the few weeks before and a few weeks after. So that's one of the main reasons we started the podcast three and a half years ago was for me, to keep me motivated throughout the year of training. So Juddy Buddy, thank you for your kind words. I hope you do train all year long. Our next review comes from Ironmans and Insulin. Ironman and Insulin writes, great source of info and inspiration. 5 stars. First timer for 2019, and this has been an invaluable resource for info about the race, tips, tricks, and overall info. Must listen. Thank you, Ironmans and Insulin. I'm reading his review. Invaluable resource, info about the race, tips, tricks, and overall info. I'm not an expert, right? I've done it a few times. I've pitted once, run it 3 times, did really well one time, did not so great the other 2 times. Just a guy, but we have great guests and people who know what they're talking about. So I appreciate the kind words. If you would like to be a part of the show, like Juddy Buddy Balls and Ironmans and Insulin, you can leave a review. Also, just go to iTunes and search for World's Toughest Podcast. Click our logo and then scroll down to click Write a Review, and I will read it on a future episode. Kyle McLaughlin is the past and current president of Tough Mudder. He is the guy who is most responsible. And if you were to ask him, he would say, no, there's a big team. And that's true. There is a big team. But without his leadership and without his making it happen, I don't know if 2019 would have been such a great year. And I don't know if this whole purchase thing would have happened. So very excited, very happy to welcome Kyle back to the show. It's time to talk with Kyle McLaughlin. Let's go to the phones. Kyle McLaughlin, welcome back to the show.
Will, it is good to be back. That was a long winter break, my friend.
That was. I was checking before we talked this morning. The last time you and I talked was in October, just before World's Toughest last year. It's been quite the fall, huh?
It's a bit of like a winter hibernation, right? Like, go to sleep in December, wake up in February.
I kind of wish I had done that, and then it would have been a lot less stressful over the winter.
Yep, I hear you there. It's good to be back, though.
So the short story is that Tough Mudder is now owned by Spartan. If they weren't owned by Spartan, tell me if I'm wrong, they would be owned by no one and be gone. Is that pretty accurate?
Well, I mean, that's certainly the likely outcome. Always a chance that somebody else might have stepped up to try and acquire it. But Spartan was, the original buyer and bidder who we had the deal planned with back in December. And thankfully for us in the community, they stuck with it through all of the turmoil and the chaos and pursued, getting this thing back up and running. And we're really grateful to them for that.
If we were just to lay it all out there from October till right now, what happened? Like, how do we get from there to here?
That's a deep question, Will. How much time do you have?
Much as you want, or you can summarize it. Just, I guess, like if you were to explain to a guy in the elevator, like, yeah, this is what happened to the industry in the last 6 months. I know it's a big question, I guess.
A big question. Yeah. So look, we were on a good track as we went into the end of 2019. It was a great season for us. We were pretty excited about the success that we had and all of the indicators that we look at pointing in the right direction. We had ambitious plans for 2020. But as a lot of people know, and a lot of people found out through the process, Tough Mudder had a lot of legacy debt and things that were kind of hanging out in the background. And we were looking at ways to restructure that debt. And the board of Tough Mudder had looked at exploring a merger or a transaction process. We had run a kind of competitive marketing process to get people to look at the business. Spartan put in the most compelling offer for it. We had we're in the process of finalizing and negotiating a merger deal when things went a little bit sideways with Tough Mudder's shareholders. And I think what's happened since then has largely played out in the media. A lot of people have seen the reporting and the stories. There's a lot of facts that are accurate in some of those, a lot of things that were, distorted or missed out on some of the facts in those. And I'm not going to get into the specifics because I think those pieces are likely to kind of play out in court and in litigation over the next couple of months and years. But as of December 20th, we were in a position where we were forced to kind of put Tough Mudder dormant because we weren't sure what the outcome was going to be. I was forced to resign, and the team kind of sat lying in wait for a resolution. And thankfully, the Spartan team and Joe stuck with us through that process. We tried a couple of different routes to bring things to a positive resolution, and it ended up being Tough Mudder's 3 U.S. Construction partners, the guys that build the obstacles, that went out on a limb and filed the involuntary bankruptcy in January. That brought this into court and allowed a judge and a trustee to come in and be the impartial decision makers about the best path forward for the company. And as much as it felt like that took a long time for those of us that were close to it, and I'm sure for those in the community who were watching it from a distance, the reality is that from January 7th when it was first filed now until the end of February, 6 or 7 weeks passed, and we got in and out of court completely and came out under new ownership, and that's frankly pretty impressive based on how the U.S. court system works and other things.
When I heard that Tough Mudder filed for bankruptcy, on the face of it, that sounds very scary. We knew there were trouble, but ultimately it sounds like that's what made it possible for Spartan to buy them and to make the acquisition.
Yeah, so Spartan had a proposal that was accepted back in the fall for an acquisition that would not have involved the court process per se, but that one, as you all know, had some issues clearing approval from the shareholders and other parties. So the court process allowed a judge and a trustee to step in and allow the sale to Spartan to continue.
So that's how we got here. Let's talk about where we're going. Tell me about 2020. What does the 2020 schedule look like for Tough Mudder?
So the goal right now is 9 events, 9 full Tough Mudder weekends in North America, plus Toughest in Chicago and World's Toughest in Dallas. That schedule, as it currently sits and as we're moving forward, is Virginia in May, Twin Cities in July. We're hoping that we'll be able to confirm a final date for Colorado in the next couple of weeks, but that's on track for early August is the goal. Followed by Chicago, Tri-State, Seattle. Hopefully, Canadian process finishes up in the next couple of weeks, and we'll get Toronto back on the calendar for its originally scheduled date in September as well. And then Dallas, World, and SoCal.
Toronto that's news. I haven't heard that before.
Well, the Canadian Tough Mudder Canada is a separate company. They were all part of the larger Tough Mudder parent company, but it's in its own kind of insolvency process in Canada right now. That should hopefully wrap up in the next couple of weeks, and if everything goes as planned, the goal will be to get Toronto back up online as well.
What about the non-North American countries? I've seen stuff from Australia and Ireland, Germany. Yeah,
so Tough Mudder UK, which is what we call an owned and operated market, meaning that it's fully owned by Tough Mudder and operated by Tough Mudder staff. That's also under Spartan ownership now, and they're back up and running. Their full calendar is expected to go on as planned this year. Tough Mudder Germany is also, we're making progress there. There's some complexity with how things go in German law, but that's an owned and operated country as well, and we're solving out some kind of next steps there. But Germany's looking to be moving forward in some shape or form, and then all the other markets are markets that are licensed out, where we support a local operator in hosting Tough Mudder events, and they were largely unaffected by the outage here. They were able to kind of continue to move forward, and we've got new events this year launching in a number of those countries.
How many countries is Tough Mudder in right now?
20 or 21, I think, is the current number. It's a number that fluctuates a little bit now, depending on. We've got some operators that have regional agreements, and sometimes they're in or out of countries depending on how things are going. But we're doing really, really well in Southeast Asia. Launched Malaysia, Singapore, new operator in the Philippines this year. We've been in Australia, for some time, in South Korea as well, and then have a new event happening in Brazil this year, as well as we've been established in the Middle East for a while, but Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Ras Al Khaimah in the Middle East, Egypt, and a bunch of other events across Europe.
So 2020 is the 10th year Tough Mudder has held events. You and I talked before about the 10th anniversary weekends that were planned before all this happened. What's the status of those 10th anniversary parties?
So Chicago and Tri-State in the U.S. that were originally on the schedule 10th anniversary weekend, they're still anticipated to continue. We'll have the 10th anniversary special headbands out there. You might see some signature obstacles from the archives come back, and a bunch of other special celebrations and festivities coming out at the 10th anniversary events as well. We anticipate launching more info on that in the next couple of weeks.
I talked to Joe Sena right when this all started, and one thing we talked about was that if Spartan were to buy Tough Mudder, that something that he wanted to do or was thinking about was bringing prize money back to Toughest and to World's Toughest. Has that conversation taken place? And if so, how'd it go?
Well, in fairness, we're on day 4. So we get a lot of things to sort out and work on, and we're working on getting the nuts and bolts back up and moving, ticket sales back online, the schedule finalized. So, Joe and I chat all the time. We haven't gotten to that conversation yet, but as soon as we have a plan kind of locked in and finalized, I'm sure the community will be eager to know the outcome of that.
So for the community members that maybe they go to the same local Tough Mudder every year, looking forward to going to it this year, what changes, if any, will they notice when they go to their next Tough Mudder?
I mean, realistically, none. We're planning on putting on the same great events that we put on in 2019, with the same slate of Tough Mudder obstacles that you've come to know and love, plus some of the new ones that we were working on in the back end of 2019 before December happened. And, we're constantly looking to improve and innovate the product. And, we've now got the resources and the scale of being part of a larger family with Spartan to be able to make some of those things happen a little bit easier. But, the Tough Mudder experience that our community and customers have come to expect from us is exactly what we plan to deliver.
So I know you guys are early in the conversation process, but have you guys talked about doing any crossover obstacles? Like we'll take their spear if they take our electroshock?
Not yet. But it's possible. We're going to have to change a bunch of our humor signs, right? We used to make fun of each other in encore signage all the time. So maybe we can still do that.
That's right. And I remember reading in a book about planes flying overhead. If you think this is tough, you should try a Tough Mudder.
Well, those were the very early days, and part of the competition between Spartan and Tough Mudder is what keeps the industry healthy, right? And just because we're under the same ownership doesn't mean that we're not going to be, still taking a few competitive, jabs at each other, all in good fun from time to time.
Tough Mudder has some familiar faces like Sean Corvell and Clinton Jackson, Coach, and E-Rock. Can we look forward to seeing those guys or some of those guys at future events?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're working on their schedules with them right now. As we get their schedules confirmed, we will certainly share those out to the community. We've got lots of questions about when the familiar faces will be out, and I've been in touch with those guys all throughout this process for the past couple of months, keeping them up to speed and informed. And I know that many of them have been holding key weekends open for us. So they want to be there.
There's been a lot of discussion about people who bought this ticket or that ticket for 2020, but maybe that event isn't happening now. Or they bought a season pass back when it was a full season. What's the general answer to those questions, and where can people find out more information about their tickets?
So everybody who was holding a 2020 ticket, pass, bundle, or other 2020 kind of piece of instrument or currency there for us in North America or in the U.S. received an email from us last Friday with details on their resolution. So if their event is happening, obviously their ticket's still good for that event. If their event's not happening, they got some options from us on what they can do with that ticket and the generous offer that Spartan's given them to have 2 open passes for future events. And that went out to all pass holders as well. We do have a repository on our website where we're keeping FAQs regularly updated. There's a 2020 season FAQ link that people can get to for the latest and make sure all their questions are answered. But the team at Tough Mudder Support, Mitchell and Jonathan, are bashing through emails as well. We had a pretty substantial backlog after not having anyone in the office for a couple of months, but we're working to get all the updates out to people now and make sure we address any of the kind of special questions or circumstances that came up.
What about 2021? What are the plans for a full schedule next year? Joe mentioned before kind of deconflicting World's Toughest from the Spartan schedule to try and get everyone or make it possible for everyone to get to every big event during the year. Is that something that's still planned?
Well, look, I think a big part of what we want to do and the big benefit of us all being one family now is not just World's Toughest with the Spartan Championship schedule, but all of the Tough Mudder and Spartan events. Over the years, be it intentionally or unintentionally, we ended up in a place where we had a lot of times Spartan and Tough Mudder events that were either on the same weekend, in the same region, or very close to each other in the calendar. When people might have made a decision of like, well, if these things were 3 months apart or 6 months apart, maybe I would do both of them, but I'm not going to do Tough Mudder this weekend and Spartan next weekend. So we've got a big process right now, between the TM team and the Spartan team to kind of get the calendars aligned and sorted out. And as you might imagine, it's a pretty complex operation. Venues are, sometimes when you get into a venue and a venue that's a bit more popular, you get grandfathered into a weekend and those get hard to move around. But our goal next year is to, get a calendar out that allows people to do Tough Mudders and Spartans if they live in a certain area and want to do both and have the opportunity to do that and get back to some of the, the markets and venues that we unfortunately weren't able to do in our abbreviated season this year.
What does it look like day to day? Like you're in the Spartan offices now. Were you able to bring in like the Tough Mudder employees? Were you able to get some of those guys back that were kind of in limbo for months and months?
Yeah, so we are sharing some space with the Spartan team in New York. We've got about 20 people who were with the U.S. team previously who've come over to be part of the rebuilding team here in the U.S. We all kind of get started moving into the same office together this Wednesday. And, and look, we're setting out to kind of, get the calendar up and running, get the same events that everybody knows and loves hosted and put on for this year. We've got a lot of work to do. But that was one of the best things and things I'm most grateful to the Spartan team for is that even before they had the court approval to acquire Tough Mudders, they had gone out and hired a number of the TM teams to make sure that they had income coming in and they were getting pay coming in so that they were able to be there and be ready to go. Assuming that the court approved the sale, which they did.
It seems like, for the situation, how it's been, where we are right now, everything seems like as good as it could be. Are there any, concerns or lingering things out there that are kind of, not a worry, but a concern maybe that something has to be dealt with? Or is it just all sunshine right now?
Look, I'm pretty pleased with where things turned out, well, to be honest with you. We never gave up hope. I never gave up the fight, all throughout this process. But there were definitely points in December and January where I was sitting there wondering if we were going to get to this game and get to this kind of end stage here. And it was because, Joe and the team at Spartan and the TMHQ team who stuck with this and realistically the community who stuck with us too, never gave up hope and never gave up the fight. And that doesn't mean that there won't be hurdles ahead, right? We've got we got to put a lot of the pieces back together. But I think the biggest risk in the future, Will, and the thing that we need everybody's help with and the help of all your listeners is misinformation. It's so easy when you don't understand the facts of the situation to kind of fill in the blanks and to make assumptions about what happened or how we got here or what's going to happen in the future and let that impact your decision of whether you're going to participate or not. The short answer is Tough Mudder's back. Same brand, same team, same events, delivering the thing that people love. And our ability to do that successfully in the future is going to depend on this community, digging back in with us, reinvesting, and continuing to grow this community.
Spartan made a pretty big investment in buying the company and hiring employees before they even really needed to. What makes this a good investment for Spartan, or what does success look like for this relationship going forward?
Oh, look, that might be a question better oriented for Joe, but I'll certainly share, my perspective on it. Tough Mudder and Spartan for a long time have been the two powerhouse brands in OCR. Certainly we were some of the first to market. We were some that have been able to expand globally and get a footprint around the world. And, if we looked at a lot of the changes, not just in OCR, but in overall mass participation in the last couple of years, a lot of what, has challenged the market has just been oversaturation. A lot of different races, a lot of different event operators coming in. Some people offering great products, some people offering, less than great products. But the ability to be successful in this industry is about achieving scale and about being able to do things on a broader scale where you can, put on quality experiences. You can reach a bigger audience. You can, create products and event experiences that appeal to the person who's just getting off the couch, all the way up to the person who is, a dedicated ultra racer and, is regularly out pounding out 100-mile races. And I think our two customer bases fit really well together. We're a good ecosystem. When we did a lot of studying when we were talking about the earlier deal process, and I think Joe's mentioned this before. I don't know if it was your interview or with Matt Davis, but realistically, the TM and Spartan customer database only has about 4 or 5% overlap. It's really, really small. And when you think about that, the size of the number of customers that we have, that's still 40,000 people, 50,000 people, right? And those are the people that we all hear from. They're your listeners. They're the people who are on the groups and in the community. So it seems like it's a much bigger group than it is. But realistically, the people who are coming out to do Tough Mudders are not, are different customers than the people who are coming out to do Spartans. And if we can give people a progression, in their journey to participate in these events, maybe they start off at a Tough Mudder and they graduate, to doing Spartan races down the road, or they live in a community where they get the luxury of being able to do both a couple times a year. That's better for all of us, right? So it's a stronger industry. It's more offerings for more people. It gets more people off the couch and gets more people moving.
Kyle, usually at the end of an interview, I ask the guests if they have any sponsors or anything they'd like to plug. But is there anything like you just want to say, like straight to the community?
Well, I think I've shared a lot in posts in the last couple of days. But for me, I've seen a lot of the community reaction to throughout this whole process. It probably comes as no surprise that I read everything and follow everything, and even if I'm not responding in a lot of the Facebook groups and on social, I've got a good pulse on what's going on. And it's only natural in situations like this, right, that you're going to be upset and frustrated at what happened and why it happened and how it may have impacted you personally. But I ask that people kind of put that in perspective a little bit, right? Gratitude is important. If it wasn't for the Spartan team, we wouldn't be here today. If it wasn't for the TMHQ employees who stuck this out, when they easily could have and would have been well within their rights to walk away, we wouldn't have a team, left to be able to put this thing back together. To sponsors who stuck with us through this, to the community who never kind of gave up hope and gave up the fight. Be thankful for what we do have, and we're going to put on 10 great events this year, and we're going to work on rebuilding Tough Mudder back to what it was as we get into and across the future. But a big thank you from me to all of those who have never given up hope. And who've never given up on getting Tough Mudder back to where it currently is today. And this will be a story that will be told for some time. The Legionnaires who are around 10 years from now will be telling stories and sagas of you never remember what happened back in 2020. But I'm pretty excited about what the future has in store for us, and we're glad to be part of one bigger family now in Spartan Team.
So we can is it fair to say we can hope for 2020 to be kind of a blip and then 2021 back to, full schedule, business as usual?
I wouldn't call 2020 a blip, Will. No.
Aberration.
The last few months might be a blip, but look, we're going to put on a great season this year, and simultaneous to that, we're going to work on a plan for 2021, and we're going to do the plan that makes sense, and we're going to host as many events as we think we can. But more to come on 2021 events. Historically, we like to launch those about 11 or 12 months ahead of when they're going to happen, which means, if all goes well, we're going to start launching 2021 events in the next couple of months here, so that we can start to build the early part of next year's calendar and people know what's coming.
Kyle, any last thoughts on Tough Mudder, Spartan, anything else?
We're glad to be back. We've got a lot of work to do. We ask that people be patient with us, but you also share your feedback. A lot of the reasons why we're not jumping into making big announcements and big updates on a lot of the policies and procedures and things like Holy Grail and contender status that are very important to the community are because we want to make sure that we've assessed all the thoughts and feedback and input before we go out with new messaging, and if there's going to be any changes or adjustments to those this year. So share your thoughts, share your feedback, and go out and tell people how great Tough Mudder is. And get those, bring your friends, bring your family, get people signed up, and we're going to have a great year.
Kyle McLaughlin, thanks much.
Thanks, Will.
Special thanks to Kyle McLaughlin for appearing in this episode. Well done, Kyle. Come back anytime. He has the lifetime pass. If you want to see those U.S. dates again, go to the OCR Report's Instagram, instagram.com/the OCR Report, or just search for it in the Instagram app. That's easier. What Tough Mudders will you be at? Will you be in Chicago or Tri-State for the 10 years? Will you be at Toughest Chicago? World's Toughest Mudder, 10th anniversary. Don't miss it. Let me know, willhicks@gmail.com. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. I will talk with you soon. Go spend time with someone you love.